something crawled into my bed. This happened when I was 12, and it was only me and my mom in my house, as far as I knew. I had said goodnight to my mom, went to my room, turned out the lights, and went to bed. I was lying on my side, about to fall asleep, when I felt a cold hand touch my lower back, and I completely froze. Then I felt my mattress compress behind me like someone was getting into my bed. I've never been that scared in my life. I couldn't move, not even my eyes. I was just staring at my bedroom door, praying my mom would come check on me. I tried to scream, but I could only manage a kind of groan, and I couldn't tell if it was loud enough for my mom to hear. Then the thing behind me started slowly stroking my back and whispering, "Shh, shh, shh." I have no idea how long this went on. It might have only been like 5 minutes, but it felt much longer, and I felt completely helpless. I tried to groan as loud as I could, and finally I heard my mom's footsteps coming down the hall. She opened the door and poked her head in, and as soon as she looked at me, she screamed. Her scream jolted me up, and I started screaming too, and flailing my arms around trying to fight off the intruder. My mom turned on the lights, grabbed me, and hugged me, and started saying it's okay. I looked around and there was no one else in the room. I asked her where it went, and she didn't know what I was talking about. I said the thing in my bed, and she said there was nothing in my bed. So I asked her, "Why did you scream?" She said she came in because she heard me groaning, and when she saw my face, my eyes were crossed and my mouth was hanging open, and it scared the crap out of her. I told her what happened, and she was very disturbed. We looked all around to make sure no one was hiding in my room, and finally she decided it must have been some kind of waking nightmare. But I'm sure there was something there. I felt dark presences and shadowy figures many times since that night. I just found my wife outside. I'm sitting here freaking out. It's 3:17 a.m. and I just found my wife outside. This is going to be a mess as I'm still shaking, but let me explain it as best I can. So a bunch of years ago, we lived in another house. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard noises coming from the other half of the house. I quietly opened my bedroom door and immediately saw a light on in my wife's study, which was situated next to my kitchen. The house we lived in was a few blocks away from, quote-unquote, the bad neighborhood, so my immediate thought was that someone had broken in and was going through the stuff in my wife's room. As my wife had come to bed with me several hours prior, as far as I knew, she was still in bed. I crept through the house and was ready to confront the person in the room when I realized that it was my wife. In my still half asleep state, I assumed she was still in bed. Turns out she had woken up, couldn't go back to sleep, and went to her room to browse Facebook or whatever for a while. I had almost confronted my own wife, thinking she was a burglar. Now, in our current house, we have a screen door and a wooden door. The wooden door has a deadbolt on it, and you have to make sure that you take the house keys with you, because if you close the wooden door, you're not getting back in unless you grab the hidden spare key or knock on the door/window to be let back in. So it's about an hour ago, I'm woken up by the front door rattling. I immediately grab my phone and pull up the security camera located by the front door. To my surprise, I see my wife standing there, kinda shivering. It's definitely her, because we've been married over a decade and I know what my own wife looks like. She's dressed in the same clothing she wore today, a red top and black pants, 100% her. I don't know what she's doing outside, but she is. Confused, I roll over and there's my wife, fast asleep. Remembering the incident in our last place, I used my phone screen to shine a light on her and confirm that it's definitely her and she's definitely in bed. At this point, I'm really confused. I get up and make my way through the house to the front door. As I walk in to the lounge room, our cat looks up at me half asleep. Normally, she's super curious about stuff going on outside, and I would have thought that hearing the screen door rattling would have caused her to be at the door trying to see what's going on. But it's as if she didn't hear a thing. I stand by the door and call out, "Who is it?" "It's me, hurry up and let me back in, I'm freezing." I went outside because I heard something, but I forgot to take the keys in my bag with me. That absolutely sounds like my wife. Accent, intonation, knowledge about where her set of keys are, everything. But I'm not convinced because I've just seen her sleeping in the bed with my own eyes. "Hold on a second," I tell her. Now I'm heading back through the house into the bedroom. I wake up my wife and say, "This is really fucking weird. You have to see this." I open the camera app and show her the front door. She's still at the door looking around, wondering what I'm doing because all I need to do to let her back in is turn the handle on the deadbolt and open the door. My wife says, "What the fuck? When was that recorded?" I tell her it's not. This is live. You're standing outside by the front door. I just went down there and asked who it was, and your voice told me it was you and that I should let you back in because you're freezing and you left your keys in your bag. My wife gets up and peers through the bedroom window. As you can just see the front door alcove from there. She gasps and pulls the curtain shut. She turns around and I'll never forget the look on her face as long as I live. She's terrified. "That's me," she says. At this point, I'm freaked the F out. I'm wide awake, I'm speaking to my wife, and I'm physically touching her while trying to peer out the window with her. But there she is, standing outside in the very same outfit she wore today. Same hair, same glasses, same everything. We walked into the lounge room and I grabbed the big torch I have. It's a big, sturdy, metal, super bright light. Great for blinding people and hitting them if they get too close. We stand by the door again. "What's your name?" I ask. She tells me her full name, including her middle name. It's correct. "What's your birth date?" She tells me it's also correct. "What did we have for dinner tonight?" She tells me this too, and tells me that I cooked it. This is right too. I can hear my real wife standing next to me, trying to control her breathing as she's scared out of her wits. I nudge her and whisper, "Ask her something only you would know." After a moment to steady herself and thinks of something, she speaks. "When we last stayed with my parents, what change had Dad made to my old room?" There was a pause. "Who is that?" the person said outside. "Why aren't you letting me in? You know it's me." "You're starting to freak me out here. Who is that inside with you? Is that a recording of me? What's going on here?" I said, "Answer the question. What change had been made to your room when we last visited?" Another pause, then finally, there was a second bed added as Max and Damien sleep in there while visiting my mom and dad. There was an audible gasp from my wife next to me. Now we're both freaked out. I grab her hand and lead her back into the bedroom and turn the lights on. We're still awake, watching the cameras. The other person walked towards the backyard, presumably to grab the spare key, but that was around 40 minutes ago, and I haven't seen them since. I'm too shit scared to go to bed because I'm scared that this person who knew everything about my wife will find the spare key and enter. I don't know who the F they really are or what they want, but I'm not sleeping. My son. The sound of laughter rang through the house, pulling me from work. It was late, nearly midnight, and I had thought my son, Ethan, was asleep, but there he was, standing at the edge of the living room in his favorite dinosaur pajamas, giggling. "Dad, come play with me," he said, his voice light and cheerful. My stomach sank. Ethan wasn't here tonight. My wife had taken him to her mother's for the weekend. I stood frozen, staring at the boy who looked and sounded exactly like my son. "Ethan?" I managed, my voice trembling. The boy tilted his head his smile unwavering. "You're silly, Dad. Come on." He dashed toward the hallway, his bare feet slapping against the hardwood. I grabbed the fireplace poker, my hands shaking. Every logical thought screamed that this wasn't real, but the sound of his voice, the way he moved, it was uncanny. I followed cautiously, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. The hallway stretched before me, dimly lit by a single nightlight. Ethan, it, stood at the far end, waving, "Hurry up." "Who are you?" I demanded, gripping the poker tighter. "Dad, it's me," he said, his voice tinged with hurt. "Why are you being so mean?" "Stop," I barked, my voice cracking. "You're not my son." The boy froze, his expression twisting into something unnatural. His eyes, so familiar a moment ago, turned pitch black. His jaw unhinged slightly, as if it might uncoil further. "Why don't you believe me, Dad?" My knees nearly buckled. I stumbled forward, desperate to put distance between us, but the boy started walking towards me, slowly. I swung the poker instinctively as he approached, but it passed through him like smoke. He grinned, wider, his teeth sharper now. "You can't hurt me, Dad. I am your son." Suddenly, there was a loud crash from upstairs, Ethan's room. My mind raced. Was my real son here? No, he couldn't be. I bolted up the stairs, taking them two at a time. Behind me, the mimic's laughter echoed, but it was distorted now, warped and hollow. I burst into Ethan's room, and my heart stopped. Ethan was there, curled up on his bed, his eyes wide with terror. He looked at me and whispered, "Dad, it's here." Before I could process, the mimic's voice came from the hallway behind me. "Don't listen to him. I'm your real son." I turned to see it standing in the hallway, its form shifting unnaturally. For a horrifying moment, it looked exactly like Ethan again, to the smallest detail. Then, its face began to warp, stretching into a grotesque smile. Ethan grabbed my arm. "Dad, you have to believe me, it's not me." The mimic took a step closer. "He's lying," it said in a perfect imitation of my son. "I'm the real Ethan." Panic clawed at my chest. My eyes darted between the two of them, one terrified, the other calm, but wrong. "Prove it," I shouted, my voice breaking. "Tell me something only Ethan would know." The Ethan on the bed, looking up at me, his eyes filling with tears. "You made me pancakes last Sunday. You burned them, but I ate them anyways because I didn't want to hurt your feelings." The mimic laughed coldly. "Anyone could guess that," it said. "Come on, Dad, you know me." But it didn't move closer. It just stared, its black eyes boring into mine. I made my choice. I grabbed the real Ethan, pulling him close, and shouted, "You're not welcome here, get out." The mimic let out an ear-piercing scream, its body twisting and contorting as it faded into the shadows. The room fell silent. Ethan clung to me, trembling. "Dad, I was so scared." I held him tightly, my heart racing. I didn't know how he'd gotten here or how long that thing was watching us, but one thing's for certain, it wasn't gone for good.